We're talking about inside computer. But before I do that, before I talk about what's inside computer, let's first understand what's inside human brain, or how does the human brain process information. Right? When you look at something, you remember it. You look at a face and you remember that this is, now that you have seen me. If you meet me in Costco or Walmart or somewhere on the road, right? You will know who am I. How would you know that? You looked at it. Your eyes looked at me. Your ears are listening my voice, and it is recording in your brain somewhere. Your brain is processing that information and storing somewhere in your memory. And next time when you hear the same voice, next time when you see the same face, your brain is going to ask the memory, hey, have you seen this guy somewhere? And say, yes, he's Yashwant. And that's how you know that it's Yashwant. Because somewhere in your memory, that information is stored. We have like what we call it 5 sensory organs, right? We have nose that we smell. We have eyes that look at it. We have ears that we listen, right? We have hand that we can feel, touch and feel it. If you ever went close to fire in your childhood and you burn your fingers, unfortunately, you will remember it. You know now that next time, stay away from fire or handle it with care. How do you know? Because your brain sends a signal. Your memory tells you that, oh, it's the same problem. It's the same fire. The computer works exactly the same way. Computer has its own, what we call it, input. Like our eyes look at something, that's an input. Your ears listening a sound, that's an input. You're sending information to your brain that, hey, process this. If I'm saying, Dave, listen me carefully, you come in attention immediately. Why? Because you are listening and I gave you an input. I gave that input to your brain and saying, Dave, listen carefully. And then your brain realize and you come in the attention. That attention is your output. I gave you some input, the voice input, and you came in action. That was your reaction, that you suddenly change your posture, you look attentive, you stop yawning maybe. I'm just kidding. It's not really yawning. But the point is, I give you some input, your brain processes it, and then you throw some output. And that's where exactly it happens in computer too. You have what I call it input, because every computer has some input, right? And every computer has some process, what we call it brain. And then it gives some output. Okay. And then it also has what we call it memory. It also remembers it. So when you give some input, it does the processing and it throws you output. But processor does not remember. The job of remembering things lies with memory. Similarly, our brain doesn't remember. It's somewhere in the memory, right? And what we call short-term memory and long-term memory. Computer also has short-term memory and long-term memory. The short-term memory, you call it RAM, which stands for the random access memory. And long-term memory is what we call it hard disk. Right? So if you are working on your computer right now and you don't save, everything that is running on your computer is in the RAM. It's in the short memory. If you suddenly power it off or you lose power to your computer, everything is gone. You switch it on, the programs are not there. You did not save the data. When you click save button on your any software, for example, Microsoft Word or any place, any software for that matter, the data is stored from what I call it from RAM. It transfers to hard disk. So the next time when you restart a computer, data is loaded back from hard disk to RAM. Think of this like short-term memory and long-term memory type. So if if I ask that question to Ishan, hey Ishan, do you remember a couple of days back what type of t-shirt, what color of t-shirt did you wear? It will be very hard for you to remember, right?
Yeah.
But if I ask you when is your birthday, what would be your answer?
April 6th.
Why would you remember that?
Because I've been told that, and I celebrate it every year, and
exactly.
I remember.
So
that.
every year, since you're repeating it, now your brain has recognized to remember it permanently, and it is storing that information in the hard disk. So you sleep, wake up in the morning, and data is back in your RAM, in your memory. And you know that it's, if I ask you, what's your birthday? And you immediately tell me, right? You don't have to think too much. But if I ask you, what did you wear exactly last Sunday, you may have a hard time telling me unless you wear the same shirt every day, right? Huh? So that is what we call it RAM and memory. But what is important about this architecture is it is very much mimics human brain. The human has what we call it brain. You call it in a computer language a processor. What we have memory, you call it memory. Humans have inputs, and input is like eyes, ears, and all that part. Computer has different input. And what's the input for a computer? Keyboard, right? You type something, your mouse is an input, you click something, something happens, right? On your phone, when you touch, that touch is an input because you're telling to do something. You drag and drop something by holding it. All this is input to computers. You're telling computers to do something for you. And computer is responding. If you click minimize, computer is minimizing. It clicks close, computer is closing. It shut down, computer is shutting down. So that is an output. A very most common output is the screen itself, right? You minimize it, the screen paints itself, and a new software comes, whatever it was running in the background. You double click it, a new software opens. You double click in Chrome, and Chrome browser opens because you gave the double click as an input, and the launching of Chrome and showing on the screen, right? That is the output. The output is on the screen. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go. But two important things to remember here, that you have to give some input, right? That input could be some data, input could be some mouse click, input could be, the touch on the screen. That's an input. And then your processor is going to run it, process it, and give you some output. The input code itself, the Python code we will write, that's an input. We are telling processor to take this file, also take the data that we will provide, and then we'll say, hey, this is a set of instructions. This is the data. Now run this set of instructions on this data and give me certain output. And how do you do that? I already gave that in the instruction. So computer knows, okay, I have this data, I have this set of instructions. All I have to do is to run this set of tasks on this data and give you that output. And it does it perfectly fine. Yeah. So that's what we call it output. The second important thing to remember is processor only processes the data. It only executes your instructions. It does not remember anything. And I'll repeat again in the next class when we talk a little bit more about memory and all. But the important thing to know that processor does not remember it. Processor only executes and forgets. The task of remembering lies with RAM or memory. So every time a processor has to find what happened in the previous step, it has to go and check with memory. It is as simple as that. So suppose I write, 5 set of instructions. One instruction says, say hi to Anish. Second set of instructions says, say hi to Dave. Third says say hi to Rahim, right? When I say hi to Rahim, processor does not now recognize Anish or Dev. Processor completely forgot or forgets. If the processor needs to find out who was Dev, it has to go to memory and ask, was there ever a guy called Dev or Anish to whom we said hello? And processor will say yes, because in the last line 1 and 2, after it executed, memory recorded it. Make sense? Get it? Does it make sense?
I had a question.
Yes.
Yes, please.
So, so are you saying that basically, if we don't save certain information, then it gets discarded after a certain point in time because it's just in the RAM and not in the hard disk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
How much time does it get erased?
What is that?
After it's in the RAM memory, it can go back, but like after how much time does it just erase?
So, excellent question. Suppose you're running your Python program and the program has 10 set of instructions, right? Python will run line by line, or task by task, or instruction by instruction. It will finish. Program will exit. That means you are done. The processor has finished executing it. The program is offloaded from your processor, offloaded from your memory. Why does it do that? Because now it is ready for next set of instructions to execute. Only when you say that, hey, in your instructions, if you say store it so that next time when I run it, you remember it, then you start writing to a file, you're writing to your hard disk. From your instructions, you tell that don't only store it in the RAM, store it in the hard disk, but next time when I run, I need this information. So in the instructions, you explicitly mention that, hey, I need this information needs to be stored in the hard disk, not only in RAM.